Welcome back to Dragon Army Books. My name is Dustin, and I've got a serious addiction. Like, serious. A few weeks ago, I completed the animated series Avatar: The Last Airbender. And I absolutely fell in love. Like, top 3 fantasy worlds of all time. I love it. It's so much so that I immediately jumped into the graphic novels, that the majority of them take place between The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra, which I've also recently started The Legend of Korra. But I'm reading the graphic novels right now, and there's a good amount of them, which is nice. And it's a perfect merger for my channel, because this channel is more so about books than it is animated television series, but it's always been about sci-fi and fantasy, and Avatar is definitely fantasy, but with the graphic novels, I can bring in the books as well. So it works perfectly for this channel. I've read just about 14 graphic novels within the last couple of weeks. The majority of them, the overwhelming majority of them, being Avatar graphic novels. So these are the books that I've read in the month of June. You can see them around me. The timestamps to each of these will be in the description below, so that you can click to look at any of the quick mini reviews of any of the books that you see on the screen now. But I would implore you to watch the entire video as I do quick mini reviews of each of the books and graphic novels and audiobooks and the like that I've read in the month of June. 2 things to start. 1, yes, I noticed in the backgrounds the sun is slowly setting outside, and I could close my curtains right now, but that is too much work. And number 2, I'm going to try to get through these as quickly as possible, because if I were to do mini reviews of each and every one of these, this would take well over half an hour, because like I said, there's 14 graphic novels, and then I read another 3 or 4 novels this month, and so that would just take entirely too long. I will do a separate video giving my thoughts and my fuller summaries and reviews on each of the graphic novels in the Avatar universe. So for now, I'm just going to quickly jet through them, giving my initial impression. Zuko's story, The Lost Adventures, Team Avatar Tales, and Katara and the Pirate's Silver are all confined short stories that take place either during the animated series or shortly after, leading up to the more core graphic novels that I'll talk about shortly. Each of these are relatively good, and one of them is abysmally awful. Okay, so let's just get that out here. Team Avatar Tales is absolute garbage. It didn't need to be written, but the others are all fine. They're all good. Even the Zuko story, which is actually a prequel kind of novel. It really leads up to the moment where it's in between Zuko being banished from the Fire Nation to the point of him seeing the beam of light shoot up into the sky, letting him know that the Avatar has arrived. It's kind of those moments. I think it's actually a 3-year period, something like that, where he's searching for Aang, and it actually is a movie edition. So it's not the animated series, it's from The Last Airbender, the bad movie, but it actually does well as well. So each of these, outside of Team Avatar Tales, I enjoyed for the short, brief stories that they were. The Promise is a 3-part collection by Yang and Gurihuru, and I, again, probably pronounced those incorrectly, but this team really can do very little wrong. There's one thing story-wise that I don't like in a future graphic novel, but here in The Promise, it takes place directly after the 100 Years' War, and Avatar Aang and Fire Lord Zuko are working together to bring harmony, peace, and unity to the tribes and the nation. And it's not as smooth as they would hope, and so a promise is made, a pact between friends, that if one should go awry, the other will put an end to him. So it's a good little story here. The illustration and the art is amazing. The characterization, the dialogue, all of it feels perfectly Avatar the Animated Series. In fact, I even made an argument in my written review that this could really be considered book 4. You know how each of the series are books. Book 4, Harmony Restoration, or something to that effect, because it just falls right in line with everything that is happening here. And the comics that I've already talked about, though they didn't really add anything too much to the story, this is a continuation of the story. The Promise is the first one launching the story forward, and it does so in a remarkable way. And then there's the second graphic novel collection, again 3 parts by the same team, called The Search. And here's the thing, now that I'm sitting on it a little bit more, it's not as bad as I originally thought it was. I didn't think it was horrible. The artwork is still there, the illustration is still there, the dialogue, the characters are still there. Toph's not there, which was somewhat problematic to me, but I thought it was okay because she didn't deserve to be there. In fact, none of Team Avatar, for the most part, needed to be in the story. They were just kind of like outliers, hangers on, and it felt that way. It was like, why are y'all even here? Because it was the story of Zuko and his sister searching for their mother. One of the biggest unanswered questions in the original series was what happened to their mother. She just disappeared one day, and we got a few snippets here and there in the series, but not much more. Well, The Search answers all of those questions and more. But for me, it was answered in unsatisfactory ways. I didn't like the answers that were provided, and so overall, I thought the journey and the destination there was just lackluster. It wasn't what I hoped that it would be. Again, illustration is there. The fighting sequences with the bending is still epic and wonderful, but I didn't care as much for the story here in The Search. And then I took a brief excursion, but it was working chronologically in the Avatar graphic novel universe, and read Avatar: The Last Airbender, Toph Beifong's Metalbending Academy. It's a mouthful, but it's really just a very short comic that is like 80 pages or less, can be read easily in one sitting, and it's about my favorite character from the Avatar universe. But the name of the story is Toph's Metalbending Academy, and it has very little to do with Toph's Metalbending Academy. One of the cool things that we see here is an evolution to the world of Avatar. We're really moving into more of a modernization, even a year or two out from the 100 Years War, and that's really cool to see. We're seeing the expansion of Toph's Academy, which is super cool, but really it's just a short, silly story of Toph growing bored with the monotony of everything working, and there not being this tension for her to have to solve or you know, be the hero of. And so she goes and kind of causes her own problems and tries to get involved in other things, and it's really just a fun, fluffy story. There's not tons of point to it. It adds a few things here and there, but nothing overarching in the universe. And it was written and illustrated by a different team than what's doing these more, the concrete graphic novels I've been talking about. So I still think it's great. It's just, it's not as good as some of the others. Kind of just right in the middle. And then we're back with our writing and illustrating team duo there, and with The Rift. It is the third core novel in the Avatar omnibus, and it's wonderful. Toph is back, as you can see on the cover, and let's see, if The Search was kind of about Zuko and his evolution and story, then The Rift is about Toph, and it's Aang and Toph's story, really. The story kind of centers around dealing with the past and the future and the all too important bridge of today. Team Avatar and the young air acolytes return or travel to an area that was once sacred to the air nomads, but when they arrive, they see that industrialization has taken place, that what once was like a peaceful area that was there and sacred and holy grounds now has buildings and industry on it. And so there's this tension there of, again, the past and the future. And it's been a theme in some of Avatar. I know it's a major theme in Korra, but it's starting to, the wheels The proverbial and literal wheels are starting to roll and to take place here. Again, illustration is top notch. It's like you're watching 3 different episodes of a single arc within the animated series. I can hear the voices in my head as I read, and I couldn't ask for anything more. This is one of my favorite of the graphic novels so far. And then finally, related to Avatar, for now, I read Smoke and Shadow. It is still the combo of Yang Gurihuru, and it's wonderful. It is the story of the Fire Nation. So we're back in the Fire Nation, a little bit less Team Avatar, and really focuses kind of on Zuko. Really, Mai is a leading character here, which I didn't really care for Mai much at all in the animated series, but I feel like they rounded out her character a little bit more here in this graphic novel, and so I enjoyed her more as a character, and I thought the story was pretty good as well. Continuing from the search, Zuko and his family finally arrive back in the Fire Nation, and there is tension there in the nation. Whether or not Zuko is going to be whether or not Zuko is going to be a good leader, or should they get Ozai back in command. It's this tension that leads to a lot of battle sequences. You see a lot of it here. And then there's these evil spirits that are showing up and kidnapping kids. It leads to a lot of tension. Again, I cannot say enough good things about the illustration, the coloring, the characterization. All of it is here. One of the things that I don't love here is what they're doing with Azula's character, and by what they're doing, I'm simply meaning by what they're not doing. There's very little evolution, I feel, that is happening with her character, and I want there to be some kind of resolution. I want her to end up one place or the other. Really, what I want to happen is I either want her to end up healed and better and progressing, or in the grave. Sorry. There will be more Avatar graphic novels to come in the month of July, but for now we're going to set that aside. Let's take a break from talking graphic novels and let's talk about Wrath, the final book in The Faithful and the Fallen by John Gwynne. Really enjoyed this book. I think it's my second favorite in the series, just after the penultimate novel of Ruin. By the finale, I am so attached to the characters, the world, the mythos, that I kind of know it all. The biggest hurdle with this series has been just understanding the world, the cast of over 100 characters, the dozen plus POVs, and it was still an issue all the way through the series, but less so as the series progressed, because I just knew the characters and I knew the conflict by then. So this last book is really the buildup and the battle. The battle is 35 chapters long, the final battle, and Gwyn is an expert with his battle sequences and fighting scenes, so all of those really pay off, but like a lot of final novels in series, it takes a while to build up to that point. So that's the only reason why it was a little step back from me from Ruin, but a lot of great concluding scenes here. Gwyn really is a master at his craft and knows what he's doing. I did say it was just a brief excursion from graphic novels because we're right back in it. June was the month of graphic novels, I'll tell you that. I read Dune, House Atreides, Volume 1. I received an ARC of this to read it early. It hasn't been released yet. It is a graphic novel of the prequel series, and this is just the first volume, so there's going to be more. I haven't read the prequel to Dune. I've only read the 3 Dune books. I know there are more, but I read the first 3 Dune novels and enjoyed them for the most part. I never read the prequel novels because I know that it's not the same author. I believe it's Frank Herbert's son or something like that. But I have always been interested in the world. I think Dune is one of the most expansive, most creative worlds and religions and everything. It's one of the greatest that's been done in literature and in all of fantasy and sci-fi. This graphic novel does well. And the graphic style, the art style is not my favorite, but it's serviceable and does well. But what really works here is the story. is a story. What we're seeing is, I think it's about 35 years before the events of Dune. And so we're seeing primarily the cast of characters that we know. I mean, not Paul Atreides because he's not born yet, but his father and others, we're seeing them, but just younger and more attractive for the most part at the prime of their lives before the events that lead to Dune. So we're seeing the build up and how we get to the place where Dune can start and our family can arrive on the arid planet of Arrakis. And I just think it does well here. So I wouldn't start here, but if you're already a fan of Dune, then when this graphic novel releases, it's certainly worth picking up. And then I got an ARC of a graphic novel by Linda Sajic, who is the spouse, the wife of another graphic artist that I have talked about on this channel before. He did the Harley Quinn graphic novel that absolutely blew me away. But here, this is the first time I've read one from her. It's called Punderworld, and it's the first entry in a cute rom-com retelling of the budding romance between the Greek gods Hades and Persephone. So it's done in a very different kind of way than maybe what you're used to or familiar with that telling of that story. I think the artwork is great. It's very pretty. It's rom-com, so it's not like right up my alley of what I'm looking for in my graphic novels. There's not tons of action. There's not fight scenes or anything like that. It's just a good, quirky, cute little story. I don't know if I'll continue to read in the series, but for people that are looking for that kind of like just light, really well illustrated, decently dialogued, and an okay story, but is, that's kind of what rom-com, that whole thing works. You're never gonna have the most robust rom-com story with all of these narrative threads that take you by surprise. You just have a little cute story, and that's what you have here, and it's done pretty well. And then I'll just have these cycle through, but I'm going through Usagi Yojimbo slowly but surely. There's a lot of them. So this month in June, I read, I believe, volumes 3, 4, 5, and 6. They will slowly scroll through here so that you can see their covers, but I liked them all for the most part. I didn't hate any of them. I really like this tale of an anthropomorphic rabbit who was once a samurai, is now a ronin, a traveling warrior without a master. And these vary on how much I like them, because some of them are telling complete stories. Those are more so my favorite ones. And then every once in a while, some of these graphic novels are just telling like quick little short stories, like 3, 4, 5, 6 short stories. And those I don't care for as much. They're fine, but I really like the more lengthy novel length stories that are told in some of these graphic novels. But I really like the series. Okay, finally, 3 books that I'll talk about here together: Earth Unaware, Earth Afire, and Earth Awakens. They make up the First Formic War trilogy, written by Orson Scott Card and Aaron Johnston in the Ender's Game universe. And these books are not great. I didn't expect them to be. They were a reread for me in preparation for The Last Shadow, which is tying up Ender's Game and Ender's Shadow series that's coming out later this year. So I wanted to reread the entire series. You'll hear more about that in other videos. But these books tell of the first contact between humans and this alien species that are known as the Formics. We later will call them buggers, but Mazer Rackham is the only character that is in this series that we know from Ender's Game. So all of the other characters are brand new, and they're just not that interesting. The events that are happening are good, but the way that the story is told is not that great. I think, and I argue, that Orson Scott Card outlined this series, Aaron Johnston wrote this series, and it suffers because of that. I wouldn't recommend any of these 3 books really to anyone unless you're a die-hard Ender's fanatic and you just want the whole story. Then start here. You're not gonna have to suffer through. It's not god-awful, but it's not god-good either. For all of those books, I think I got through this relatively quickly. Let me know if you've read any of those books down in the comment below, and out of all of those, which one is your favorite? You can also suggest books for me to read in the month of July. Always looking for good recommendations. Again, let me know in the comments down below. And thank you, as always, for taking the time to watch and like this video. If you haven't yet, click subscribe, join the Dragon Army. We'll see you in the next one.